Well, good morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari. Well, my guest this morning is something of a surprise, but he's not a strange person at all to us. I'm talking about the managing partner of Bui Costeau, but much more popularly known to you and most Nigerians as the former Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. Alhaji, it's great to see you again, and it's been quite a while.
Good morning, Mr. Folari. It's been a while. Good morning, everybody. It's been quite a while.
Okay, so here we are. We see the face is well known. We're seeing you in a different context. You've been the Minister of Information and Culture for the past 8 years. For 8 years, 2 terms of the former administration, and now you're transitioning. I described you as the managing partner of Bui Costeau. We'll come to know what Bui Costeau is. But could you first of all give us some sort of insight into your transitioning process? Have there been surprises? What have you noticed since coming up from that long stint into private/business life?
Thank you, Mr. Folari. I don't think there's been too much of a transition period. In the sense that I was fortunate within a month of my of ceasing to be a minister, I was offered this job by Ballard Partners in the U.S. to represent them in Africa. Ballard Partners is a Washington-based firm of lobbyists and government relations, and shortly after I got this offer from the United Nations World Tourism Organization, which we now call World Tourism Organization, as special advisor to the Secretary General. So I actually had to come back and set up the structure for for Bui Costeau, which is largely, a firm of public relations, policy advisory.
In fact, you are a French graduate yourself, and I learned that Bui Costeau actually would mean in English.
Actually, it's like a megaphone.
So it's still communication. It's
very much communication.
Perhaps strategic communication.
Communications, lobbying, government relations, and the whole lot. Now, but of course, there's a difference between what it was a year ago and what it is today in my personal life. Today, I don't have to worry about every Wednesday there's going to be a FEC meeting. I don't need to hold strategic sessions with my aides. I don't need to meet as regularly as I used to meet with the media, either the bureau chiefs. I don't need these kind of regular appearances in the media that I had to make compulsorily in those days. So to a certain extent, the pressure is much less.
Okay.
Whatever pressure I'm in today is self-made and and created. But there are a lot of useful lessons to learn from having served for 8 years in government and transiting into private life. And I think the first to learn is that no matter how long you stay in government, you come back and meet the people one day. So after 8 years, I'm glad that I didn't find it too difficult to re-enter the public sector. But there are a few lessons you learn. The first is that you see what you learn as a minister for 8 years. They don't teach it in Harvard. They don't teach it in Yale. And I think that will be a story for another day.
Indeed.
And then there's this public perception of former ministers. And this is no thanks to fake news and disinformation. You recall that very early in the administration, there were a lot of fake news about how much money, ministers had salted into their private accounts, all over the world. Unfortunately, some people believe this, even when it looks so, unreasonable. For instance, I was supposed to be having about $1.3 billion in my private account in the U.S. And one day I had to discuss with a few people, and I said, you know what it means to have $1.3 million US? It means that...
Billion.
$1 billion. It means that if, at the best, my capital budget throughout my 8 years never exceeded 10 billion naira. Now, it will take me 52 years at 400 naira to a dollar. It will take me 52 years to make $1.3 billion. Today, it will take me more than 150 years. But this kind of thing that people bandied.
Those are the kind of stories that were being bandied around.
Yes, and then of course, and people who believe it start putting so much pressure on you. You know, thinking that you have money and you can help them. Well, again, you just have to manage. Well,
that's the nature of the beast.
Yes, but I think with time, you are going to have many more former ministers, many more former governors, many more former presidents, many more former senators, and they will still
have to come back
into
private life.
Yes, and not that I think not all of them will just fold their arms and start playing golf. Many of them will see if they can still contribute, to
usefully to the development of the nation.
Yeah.
Indeed, thank you very much for that brief, overview as it is. But the reason that we are talking today is not so much about your former assignment, but it's noting that your company, that is Brie Costeau, organized a roundtable with the Nigerian Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies. This involved all sorts of sectors in the private sector, the Ministry of Solid Minerals, the Ministry of Steel. It was quite a large, I think the Vice President gave an address, at the opening. Tell me about that whole drive and why your firm, and we've said that it's a strategic PR firm, why your firm saw fit to organize it and getting it that well attended. Talk to me about that.
No, I think the credit for this National Stakeholders Roundtable should go really to the National Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies.
Okay.
One of the best things that happened to Brie Costeau was signing this partnership, arrangement with the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies in Kuru. And I want to take the opportunity again to express our gratitude for believing in our brand. So it's actually the idea of the National Institute for Policy and Studies. This is #1 think tank in the country, and their role is actually to advise government on not just on policy, but also on strategy to implement the policies. So the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies had a meeting with us and said, look, Mr. President wants to change, he wants to bring Nigeria to $1 trillion economy in the next 5 years. And this means we need to depend less on just crude petroleum. We need to diversify and look into other areas of the economy that can provide the extra $550 billion, because today we do about $450 billion. And they now identify 6 critical sectors of the economy outside petroleum that can fetch us the needed $550 billion. And the first that they picked was the mining industry. So they believe that if we have a roundtable, national stakeholders roundtable on the mining industry, which will be a platform to discuss all the issues that have been militating against the full actualization of the potentials of the mineral sector, and exploring new opportunities for it, we're able to contribute at least about $300 billion. In other words, the mining sector, if properly aligned, be able to contribute on its own $300 billion to our economy in the next 5 years.
Okay.
That was what necessitated the National Stakeholders Roundtable. And who are the stakeholders?
Yes, because I was going to ask.
Of course, the stakeholders are the ministries of solid mineral development itself, the Ministry of Sea Development, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Defense, the IGP, the police, the EFCC, the DSS, the Ministry of Petroleum Resources on the one hand, then the investors in the mining industry on the other hand, and also from the private sector, the miners themselves.
Okay.
And of course, the community is very important, because when if you take even a license to mine from the federal government, you are going to go into a state, a local government, to do the exploration or the exploitation of the resources. So we were able to bring together all these different stakeholders for 2 days to brainstorm and not just identify the problems. What do you know what the problems are? Provide solutions.
Okay.
And the timeline within which we can achieve this 1 trillion. We can make our own contribution through this one, to achieve the $1 trillion economy.
How doable, so to speak, I'm using that word, I think I remember the late Rashid Badamosi who used the word famously once. How doable is this project? Doubling, as it were, the economy size from around 400 and something to
a trillion.
About $1 trillion.
Yeah.
How doable is it realistically? And I ask this against the backdrop of Bricostro being a strategic communications and PR firm and lobby group. Of course, it's going to be interested in the potentials in there. But surely you must have looked at, in the 2-day roundtable, you must have looked at some challenges, shall we call them, some challenges that would also be militating against achieving that goal, much as everybody is very excited with the idea of a $1 trillion economy.
Thank you, Safolari. Like I said, it was not a conference, it was a brainstorming session.
A brainstorming,
and what we did was, like I said, we already knew what the problems were. So we broke the participants into 8 syndicates. Each syndicate addressed each thematic issue, ranging from regulatory policy to inaccessibility of funding, to community relationship, to environmental impact, to harnessing technology to improve mining, to why can't we attract big multinational mining companies into Nigeria? What is the role of traditional rulers and communities? So each of these thematic groups went into a session for 2 days, came back with recommendations, which was further critiqued by the plenary. At the end of the 2 days, we came out with what we call our own declaration, which we are going to make available to government and also to the public.
Okay.
And one of the first, agreement was that the federal government, the stakeholders, and the state government should all support the Ministry of Solid Minerals in its mainstreaming and implementation of a 7-point agenda.
Because I was going to go there. Say, what is the role? And I was going to ask him how important the contribution of the Ministry of Solid Minerals was in all of this.
Well, the minister himself was the host.
Okay.
And his remark, Alake was the host, and his remarks became the centerpiece of the discussion for the 2 days. Like I said, our declaration is that the federal government, state government, and all stakeholders, we must all support the 7-point agenda of the Ministry of Solid Minerals. Secondly, that we have also affirmed our support for the review of the Minerals and Mining Act of 2007, which is now being undertaken by both the National Assembly and the Ministry of Solid Minerals. But we ask for further consultation, with stakeholders. Thirdly, we recommended that the federal government and state government must manage the existing constitutional and legal challenges and conflict, which is not allowing it for investor confidence in the mining industry, pending the review of the new legislation.
Okay.
We also noticed that there's not enough budgetary allocation to the Ministry of Solid Minerals and the agencies supporting it. And if this is not increased, they will not be able to meet the goals we have set for them.
Okay.
Because gradually, you can see that solid minerals is not just a revenue, it's not just for revenue, it's also needed to promote other sectors.
Indeed. Now, the question that comes to mind immediately as you're speaking, Alhaji, is how competitive, in your assessment, as a stakeholder and an expert in this, how competitive is the country, Nigeria, in solid minerals? The potential is clear. I think everybody knows that. You can look that up on the internet. The next level is, the potential might be there, but how competitive an environment, or how convenient, perhaps that's a better word, how ready are we as a country to receive investment? And it has to be massive investment, given what we are looking for.
Mr. Fulani, this is precisely
from abroad.
What we set out to do. Like I say, we've already identified what the problems are. Most of the problems which I can discuss freely here is that the federal government and the state government, and I said it, must manage the conflicts. What are these conflicts? The conflicts are these. Under the Constitution, the federal government has exclusive legislative rights over mining. In other words, only federal government can issue licenses to mine. Now, but federal government has no land. So Abuja will give me a license to go and mine in Enugu. When I get to Enugu, I might have problems with the Enugu state government. I might have a problem with the community where I'm mining. So these are areas that I believe that we believe that pending the new review of the 2007 Mining Act, the federal government and state government must manage, otherwise investors will run away. I'll give you an example.
Sure.
I have a client who called me one day and said a particular state government has sealed up its mines. And by doing so, they've thrown into the job market 600 direct people, another 400, making about 1,000, over $60 million worth of equipment. And why? Because they were accused of not, abiding by the environmental regulations of
Okay.
that state.
Okay.
Now, the issue is, for me, that is sealing it the answer? Because if you seal it up, now not only are you going to create, job losses, now the company will not be able to meet its external obligations. It will discourage investors from coming to Nigeria. So this is why I believe that that's why I said the part of our recommendation that the state and federal government must sit down together and manage this conflict. That look, if I issue a license from Abuja for a person to go and mine in Kwara, that was the understanding. It's the same federal, it's the same Nigeria. Now, this is a very big issue that we believe that the review of the 2007 Mining Act would probably take care of.
How long has work been going on in this regard, this review, which it seems to me to be at the heart of the matter?
Well, it's, I think I'm not too sure whether it has reached the second reading, but I think it's made a lot of progress because the chairman of House Committee on the minerals, on solid minerals, was also there to address the
roundtable.
The roundtable, and he was quite happy and glad that this kind of roundtable was coming at this time, and that he was also he was waiting also for our recommendations. Some of our recommendations is what I'm trying to tell you, that we notice also that the mining industry today in Nigeria needs to use modern technology, data solutions, and automotive technologies so that it can, minimize the environmental challenges, it can minimize power consumption, and optimize resource extraction. One of our recommendations. We also recommended that it is largely because of this opaqueness at times, between federal government and state on this conflict, that has not enabled Nigeria to attract major multinational mining companies to Nigeria. And unfortunately, in the last 2 weeks, we saw Glencore coming to Nigeria, which is a very good sign. I'm sure they must have been encouraged by the new reforms going on in the industry. But when you look at countries with even less infrastructure than Nigeria, even less political stability than Nigeria, attracting, the likes of Rio Tinto, the likes of BHP, the likes of Vail into their country, you begin to wonder, what are we not doing right? And this is why we are very confident that if the various stakeholders, because the implementation of our recommendation is not just with government. No. It's also with stakeholders. For instance, we recommended to that mining companies should engage more with the communities where they are mining so they can create trust, address the concerns of the people. At the same time, there will be some form of benefit going to the owners of the land where you are mining. Sometimes it could be in form of corporate social responsibility. Sometimes it might be in terms of, giving priority for, employment for the local people. We have also noticed too that we lack capacity. We need to work with our education institutions, federal government and state government, and the stakeholders in the mining industry to improve the human capital.
Okay. Now, in all of this, sorry, sir, in all of this, I just want to recall that it's at the instance of the Nigerian Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies in partnership with just your firm and also all the stakeholders the ministries itself, and not just the Ministry of Mines, Solid Minerals, not just the Ministry of Solid Minerals.
Were the Minister of Solid Minerals in attendance?
Yes.
Were the Minister of were the Minister of State Development in attendance? Were the Minister of Health State in attendance? The Minister of Environment sent a director to represent him. So also did the Minister of Petroleum Resources. Now, we also had the Governor of Nasarawa State who declared it open.
Yes.
Being a key, mineral state, where the IGP sent the DIG to represent him, a representative from immigrations, from customs, because you see, mining touches virtually every aspect of governance. And I must say, with all sorts of humility, that we achieved what we set out to achieve.
With that round table.
Bring everybody that is anybody in the mining industry. I mean, whether you're talking about environmental concern, you're talking about community relationship, you're talking about modern equipment, you're talking about financing, talking about legislative policies, you're talking about regulatory framework. We had everybody together, and you see, the sessions were very exciting.
Yes.
They were intensive.
And it had all the experts.
All the experts were there. As a matter of fact, we had about 60 experts, drawn from the academia, drawn from the industry, investors, and I must say that the keynote address was given by a professor, but it was, I think Mr. Shegun Lawson of Segilola also, he was chaired the first plenary, and that was the mine there. I think it's called Thor. Is the model, is the model that all other, most many firms should follow.
Okay.
Because it's not only quoted on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, it's also quoted, I think, in Canada. And why? Because it met all the requirements.
All right. This is very interesting. This is an initiative of the Nigerian Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies. And you played a key role. Yes. Your company played a key role in this, along with all, other stakeholders, with the objective, finally, of achieving what you said, taking this economy through mining to how many? $1 trillion.
Yes, you see, the federal government says they want Nigeria must achieve a $1 trillion economy in the next 5 years.
Yes. Okay.
We are doing about 475 or thereabout billion today. So the balance of 500 billion must be sourced from somewhere else.
Indeed.
And so we said we can't rely just on oil. Let's go to mining and other
areas. Okay, we'll take a break now, Alhaji, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation and also take some calls.